Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum Assalam, Jahangir. This is a chapter from a book that I have posted in the library here. I think you haven't tried opening what is there in the library. Let me show you. It says in library I have two books here. One is a history of narrative film, right? So sometimes we have books that become very important for the discipline. For example, there is a book known as Art Through the Ages. And you can say that Art Through the Ages is the holy book for art students, because art students, we studied art through the ages when we studied this book, Art Through the Ages, when we were students back in 80s. I was at NCA. I was a student at NCA back in 80s. So they taught the same book to me that they are using to teach art history to students even today. It's not that just NCA that is using Art Through the Ages for teaching history of art to students. Many universities across the world are using the same book. Similarly, this book, A History of Narrative Film, this is an important book. The author is David A. Cook. We discussed Battleship Potemkin. So you will find that David A. Cook is also discussing this film, Battleship Potemkin, in detail in one of the chapters. Because, as I said before, that it's an important book, and Battleship Potemkin is an important film in the film history. So he discusses origins, and he discusses D.W. Griffith. I also mentioned D.W. Griffith because he is the one who actually introduced variety of shots. Before D.W. Griffith, we were seeing films in long and wide shots only. People used to sit in cinemas, and musicians would sit there right before the screen and start playing music, because it wasn't the music or sound was not part of the film as such. It was played live in the cinema, right? So D.W. Griffith's film is important first because it introduced variety of shots. It used close-ups, mid shots, wide shots, different kind of shots from different angles. So, and he also used placards for communicating the dialogues. People appear on screen holding dialogues in their hands so audience can read dialogues, right? So these are important films that he would discuss here. He should discuss A Man with a Movie Camera, because I'm seeing dates 1919 to 1929. So I would think that he would be discussing a lot of Russian films here, because this is the post-World War I era. And then he discusses 1917 to 1931. I'm sure here he would discuss Battleship Potemkin and a few different things. Kino eye actually means cinema verite, like you are seeing something directly from your eye, right? So Kino eye is seeing directly from eye. Kino Pravda is also watching with the naked eye. So I'm showing this book to you because I think that while you're writing your papers, you can also refer to this book just to see what he's saying about different kind of filming techniques, different kind of imagery or symbols, or how sound benefits a film, right? The other book that I have posted here is this film. This book, it says Film Theory and Criticism. So both of these books, one focuses on history and theory, and the other focuses on theory and criticism. So you will find less discussion on historical events in this book, but you would see that how camera or editing or lighting or something else benefits a film, because it says film theory and criticism. So the authors will actually pick up different things that are very important or that are very relevant to the discussion of any film, right? There would be a chapter on film and reality, right? Uh, and I mentioned that films represent reality. So first chapter is a discussion on representation and reality. Then another chapter focuses on film language. I did say that every shot makes a statement or a sentence, right? And so if film has sentences in the form of shots, it's a language, and it also has grammar. So there's a chapter on film language. So I think that if you are interested in reading these things, they will be useful. Then it says the film medium, image and sound. It would discuss how image benefits a film, how sound benefits a film. So while writing your essays, if you want to add, for example, a quotation that would be on image or sound, I would say try finding it here, right? And then it's focusing on how the artists benefit, the film artist, you know. So it's focusing on the significance of film artists in the film or genre in the film. I opened this chapter from this film. This focuses on women in the film. So I was showing you the book just to show you where I found this chapter. It says women and representation. So how women are represented in the film. And I said this book, Film Theory and Criticism, is actually picking up different elements from any video production, from film, from TV play or anything. It says film theory, but the theory would apply to television as well, because one chapter would be on mise en scène, another chapter would be on language, film language, another on film sound or grammar. So that's why I'm saying that this book is picking up different elements from the film individually. So the book is important, right? And as I said that this chapter focuses on women and representation. So you would see that how women are reacting to their images on screen, and if women think that they have voice in the images, or if TV or film shows them as stereotypes, you know, or TV and images actually breaks the stereotypes or not. Okay, so I have opened this chapter from the book because I think a few things we can pick from here and use for discussion today. I have opened this book from Marjan Satrapi. It says Persepolis, Marjanstrapi. And you can see that these images are very specific. And in media, these images have been heavily criticized. Not exactly the images from this book, but similar images that are found in media. The whale. Hollywood has been heavily criticizing the whale. And this book actually focuses on the whale or the arrival of whale in Iran back in 1979. And I believe Marjan Satrapi was only 10 years old when it happened. Right? So you can see that a child here remembers the history that she has lived herself, the history that made a lot of difference in her life, and a history that she knows the world criticizes as oppressive. It does not mean that Satrapi also believes it was oppressive. It does not mean all Muslim women think that veil is oppressive. It only means that veil has been given different meanings in different parts of the world. Okay, so I picked up an article here on women's representation, an article here, and I had opened another article. It seems somehow it's perhaps I have closed it right now, so I'll reopen it. It says oppression and abaya. We discussed propaganda and war films in the last two classes, propaganda, war and history. So right now I have picked up this article from here. And as Muslim women are asked to wear hijab at an early age, this is actually talking about children and young girls who are asked to wear hijab. So you can see that all these three readings are connected in one way or the other. Right? Any comment on the selection? Iras? Okay. As I said before that I have picked a few different articles from the research conducted by this German TV channel, Television. What Shapes Myself is also a research by Television. Boys, Girls and Their Media Experiences is also another paper by Television. And this, what does it mean for a girl to wear a hijab is also by Television. So you can see that perhaps German TV channel is conducting a lot of academic research or a lot of research on issues which are important to children or to women, because it's trying to understand its audience in order to produce content for the audience. And Muslim women are present all over the world. They are present in Europe, and we all know that they are stereotyped all over Europe and in the Western world. So this paper actually asks them if they also feel or think they are oppressed. Okay. So the author's name is Suzanne Kanso. She says this is an explorative research project with Muslim hijab wearing girls in Canada. And so you can see that the author is speaking to a sample of women living in Canada or residing in Canada. And she cross-examines it with her personal experiences being a Muslim woman herself. So Suzanne Kanso is a Muslim woman apparently, right? Though I wouldn't have thought after reading the name that this is a Muslim woman, but she says that she's a Muslim woman and she is writing this article. What does it mean for a girl to wear hijab? Because the rest of the world is looking at her as someone oppressed. She says that in my Muslim family, wearing a hijab means modesty, honesty, and being kind to one another, and sleeping with a clean conscience at night that you haven't done anything that should give you a bad conscience. I think in case of a Muslim woman, it would be normal because Muslims believe in certain kind of ideology and parda and veil. So for them, sleeping with a clean conscience uh, is it has one meaning all across the world. She says, I grew up watching my mom with her beautiful silk hijab around her hair every time we left the house, or whenever a non-mahram, mahram, an unmarriageable kin, right? So mahram is a person who you cannot marry. It would be your father, brother, or any other close relative who you can't marry. So it says uh, every time a non-mahram entered the house, she saw her mother covering her head with hijab. She's living in Canada. She says that when she came of age, she had to wear hijab as well. She thought she looks pretty like her mother, but what she faced outside was very different. She thought she was stereotyped when she started wearing hijab in Canada, right? Hijab had its own implication. Um, I never questioned its purpose because I wore it with educational reasoning in my back pocket. I never once imagined the implications of it could have on my life in Canada because I saw myself like any other Canadian born that it's my right to be what I want to be. So if I want to wear hijab, it's my right to wear hijab. But despite Canadian constitution saying that you have the freedom to express yourself and the freedom to have any religion that you want to have, she feels she was stereotyped in Canada. Okay, so it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter that the constitution gives you freedom or protection to express yourself or to have a religion that you want. It says societal stereotypes and alienation began when she started wearing the veil. So as she is growing up, or as she was growing up, she was facing these problems. And she faced these more between the age of 12 and 15. We can clearly see that in many cases, Pakistani women do not all Pakistani women start wearing hijab at the age of 12 or 15. So I think that it is quite significant that Suzanne Kanso started wearing hijab at the age of 12 to 15. She started wearing hijab during her puberty while living in Canada. So she says this research is part of Shaping Myself project. We already discussed what shapes myself. So we also discussed that that children in What Shapes Myself project actually drew an outline around their body. They drew their own body outline on brown paper, and then they made those big drawings, and they were interviewed after making the drawings. So she's saying that in this project as well, these hijab wearing girls are asked to draw their body outlines on paper, a big piece of paper, and had time to reflect what shapes them and their identity. So here below, you would look at some images of these images represent the self of hijab wearing girls. It says on top Zehra on this one, and the other picture does not show a name, I think, at present, or there may be a name somewhere. It says Zehra, age 14, and you can see that this Muslim woman is drawing an image of herself, and how she she's trying to understand what shapes her in in Canada. She's living in Canada. She's not essentially Canadian or Canadian for generations, but she's definitely a Muslim for generations. So she's saying that this paper is actually developed after conducting research with these Muslim hijab wearing women, and their age groups starts from 12 years of age. Okay, and she says that this is based on interviewees. Apart from they are looking at the drawings, they are also interviewing them. So the article shares the experiences of the interviewees, reveals the results of the study, and cross-examines it with scholarly perspective, which means that she is definitely looking at other articles on Muslim women or women who veil themselves. And she says that she's as a Muslim woman wearing the hijab, she grew up as a Muslim woman wearing the hijab. 14-year-old participant in the research. I think she's initially talking to only 6 women who are wearing hijab. So she says that the 14-year-old participant, Jasmine Samhat, believes that hijab is a symbol of power. So does it sound very different from what we know hijab is a symbol of? Because Yasmin is saying hijab is a symbol of power. What do we know hijab is a symbol of? Laiba? Dania? Iras? Anyone? Ji.
Miss, could you repeat the question, please?
I said that there was a line in the article that, a young girl, a 14-year-old girl, Jasmine, said hijab is a symbol of power. So the question was, does it sound different? Does her opinion sound different? Because the Western world says hijab is a symbol of oppression. And we use Western books. We have Western books in our libraries. We get most of academic materials from Western world. And in both of my classroom, I use books written by Western authors for discussion. So I'm saying this particular article is written for a European TV channel, but the author is a Muslim woman. and research is focusing on Muslim women. So you can see that perspective of Muslim woman is highlighted. And this 14-year-old Muslim woman says hijab is a symbol of power. So my question was, does it sound different from what we know? Because we know from our other books that hijab is a symbol of oppression, and because Western world says hijab is a symbol of oppression. So can you try explaining why Jasmine thinks hijab is a symbol of power, not oppression?
Miss, I think for me personally, I agree with the 14-year-old girl who says that hijab is a symbol of power, and it's also, but it depends at the same time, because right now we see, like you said, we hear about what the Western people say about hijab and every thing that's written there. I think there's a middle line for some people, because I know a lot of people who are forced to wear the hijab, but at the same time, I know people who are not forced to wear the hijab, who are choosing for themselves. So I think there's a line between where, yeah, it can be a source of, it can be a symbol of power, but at the same time, it can be, a symbol of oppression. It just depends on the person and their story.
So you are saying it depends on the individual and individual story.
Yes.
Okay. Jahangir, do you think, what is your comment on hijab being a symbol of power or symbol of oppression?
मैम अगर फोर्सफुली किसी को ये पहनाया जाए तो फिर ऑपरेशन है, अगर कोई अपनी मर्जी से पहनता है तो फिर वो उसमें पावर ऑब्वियसली फील करेगा, तो ये इस तरह मेरे को ख्याल है जिस तरह पहले
पावर कैसे फील करेगा? मतलब ऐसी क्या सी चीज, कौन सी चीज है that will make her feel powerful? हिजाब में ऐसी क्या चीज है that will make one feel powerful?
Miss, there's a stigma attached to wearing a hijab.
वो अपने रिलीजियसली पावरफुल फील कर सकता है, और तो मुझे कोई चीज।
जी दानिया, आप क्या कहना चाह रही थी?
There's this stigma attached to wearing a hijab. So if a person, and in this world as well, you're looked down upon because of everything, what we're basically being fed. And if a person chooses to wear it, it can be seen as a sign of, like power, because they're not conforming to what society thinks of them or what other people think of them. They're just doing it because they want to do it. So it can be a symbol of power. They're owning.
Okay. All right. It's very good. Sounds very good. You are saying that they are voicing. They are not only voicing what they think, but they also have the power to express themselves in any form. Express not only through their language, but also through their body language and by covering their body. So you're absolutely right that that is one way of explaining one's power. Jiras, any comment? I think what Jasmine is saying is more linked to what we know as we discussed gazing at women. We discussed objectification of women, and Yasmin thinks that women who wear abaya or hijab do not let people gaze at them. They do not let them objectify their bodies as a source of pleasure, right? So they feel that hijab becomes a kind of barrier between objectification of women by people who are gazing at them. So she says that it is difficult to objectify women who are wearing hijab, or it is difficult to use bodies of women for pleasure. You don't gaze at them for pleasure. So hijab actually becomes a barrier between the body and pleasure, right? So that is why she thinks that, I think the article, when we further go up, she explains her point of view as well. But she says that hijab is a symbol of power, having a voice and standing out. This is precisely what you said just now. And then she says that 12-year-old Batul Hussain notes the most prominent belief for her in how the hijab represents equality between men and women. So this idea sounds a bit complex, because she is saying that hijab makes men and women equal. Probably she is adding to the other comment that hijab becomes a barrier between objectification of woman's body
Miss,
by G.
sorry to interrupt you, but about what you said before, that it becomes a barrier between objectification. It it makes it difficult. Yes, you're right. Like, it makes it difficult for a woman to be objectified while in a hijab, but it doesn't stop the objectification. Because recently a video surfaced on the internet as well, where like not even a hijab, like a full niqab, and the woman is still being objectified. So it makes it difficult, but it doesn't stop them from being objectified.
Okay, do you have a link for the video? Do you remember which video it was?
Yes, I saw it on Instagram, but I will find it and I will send it to you.
Okay, it's perfectly fine. Okay, it says that 6 participants shared a common theme of putting others before themselves. So it is only saying that women who wear hijab, they are more sacrificing. They put others' interest before theirs, unlike any other person. Because they are saying that it just says that if hijab makes you modest, it also gives you the ability to put others' interest before yours. Okay, and it says that it is to neglect their emotions among their peers and place family as a main priority, which means that hijab wearing women actually place their family on top of everything, and they sacrifice their own interest in the interest of the family. Then it says Zainab Hussain speaks on behalf of other participants when she talks self-conflict, because sometimes people do not want to wear hijab, and if she is living in Canada and she is stereotyped after wearing hijab, it means that she will end up with the self-conflict, especially because some of these women are in their puberty, right? So she's talking about self-conflict and self-representation problems that are associated with hijab wearing. Because as both of you said earlier, that if people are forced to wear hijab, then it is oppression, and if they are not forced and they are choosing to wear hijab, then it is not oppression, it is a symbol of power, because they are doing it and they have the power to make a decision. So they are doing it as subjects, not as objects. So right now she is only talking about self-conflict and self-representation issues that these girls face because they are living in the West and in Canada. She says that Nadine Matar, she's 15-year-old. She says she felt really excited and happy about this research, because she thought that this research is actually giving her the opportunity to explore what shapes her, right? So she thinks that this research project is very important because girls should know what it means for them to wear hijab. So it says this project allowed young Muslim women uh, to relate to characters, right? Characters, uh, other characters, because of course, if they are making drawings like this, uh, as we saw earlier, children were identifying with SpongeBob, with the characters from Harry Potter and other TV characters, because they also become important in their lives, just like families. So they may identify with characters in TV programs. So here she is saying that how these Muslim women saw themselves and how they related to characters. For example, Blair Waldorf from Gossip Girl, Hermione Granger from Harry Potter, and Superwoman. I think everybody knows Lily Singh, Superwoman, the comedian from YouTube, because she has become one of the richest women uh, through YouTube, right? So these Muslim girls, when they are talking about what shapes them, they are talking about their family experiences and experiences from their environment, which includes also media experiences, because if somebody is identifying with Blair Waldorf or Gossip Girl or Hermione Granger or Lily Singh, you can see that there is a tendency of liking the characters and to identifying with the characters. And they say that they are doing this because they have high standards and they are not slaves of emotions. And these three, four women that are mentioned here are not slaves of their emotions. We know from Harry Potter that Hermione Granger is uh, highly appreciated throughout the series for her intellect, right? Any other thing that you can recall about Hermione Granger from Harry Potter? I'm sure all of you have watched one or the other uh, Harry Potter film. So I think you know that Hermione Granger is, for example, when first Harry Potter film ends, uh, they give 50 marks to this particular group for Hermione Granger's display of intellect, and they give more marks for other characters' performance during the year. And after that, we see that the color of that particular room changes. I believe you know what I'm talking about. Uh, if, for example, we go to Harry Potter film, Harry Potter last scene, we would know. Uh, so this is 19 years later. So this is definitely not first Harry Potter film. But have you seen the first Harry Potter? The first Harry Potter film?
Yes, miss, but I don't. I saw it.
But,
A
but you
long time
perhaps do not remember what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay. I was saying that Harry Potter first movie, movie one. I don't think we will find the whole movie here, but we can probably find some clips from the first movie. Uh, Harry Potter first movie, last scene. But I, all I mean that the first Harry Potter film actually shows that Hermione Granger gets 50 points for display of outstanding intellect, right? So what I'm saying here, that these Muslim women who are interviewed for this research actually identify with characters like Blair Waldorf and Hermione Granger, because I think they are probably appreciating her intellect, and that's the reason they are identifying with her. They describe these characters like Hermione Granger Gossip or the Gossip Girl Waldorf as incredibly, they describe them as successful and determined. So Hermione Granger is a symbol of success, and Lily Singh, Superwoman Lily Singh, is also a symbol of success and determination. So these women have been very successful. So these Muslim women living in Canada are identifying with characters like characters from media, right? So most of the times when we discuss religion, we know that we teach our women or our daughters to identify with, for example, Fatima Zahra, who is the who is the daughter of Prophet Muhammad, right? So I'm saying that research is actually exploring beyond it. It's not asking them to identify with characters who are from religion, but just to say what they feel they are, or to express their emotions in case they are identifying with any other character from media. And we see that these 6 women are apparently identifying with Lily Singh and Hermione Granger and other characters. So the next one is the hijab a symbol of oppression or tool of empowerment? It says in today's society, the hijab still it is considered a form of oppression, often used as a weapon of stereotyping Muslim women. So as I said before, that this stereotype is created by Western world about Muslim women, and because we use Western texts in our classroom, and we are under the impact of Western thought, so we may also consider that hijab is a kind of oppression. It is used for oppression. So it says, from an Islamic perspective, hijab is to reflect purity of intention and honesty, because if we ask women to wear hijab, we are talking about women's purity and honesty, which we did discuss that in case of honor killing, woman's purity is questioned, and she is murdered, or somebody attempts to murder her because her purity becomes questionable. We did discuss that in case of Umar Marvi also, her purity was suspected, but Umar came to her rescue, and both of them together walked on fire to prove that they were pure and they were not the culprits, right? So purity is very important. So hijab is connected here with purity. It says that purity and honesty are interrelated. Wearing a headscarf for Muslim women, and these concepts are very important when describing the Muslim woman. Practicing Muslim women, they mention hijab as an articulation of faith and the embodiment of divinely prescribed framework for modesty. So it is also divine for them, and an expression for modesty. So purity and modesty become very important when discussing hijab of Muslim women. Wearing a headscarf creates opportunities for Muslim women to truly understand their faith. I wonder what it exactly means. It is probably implying that those wearing hijab probably do not fully understand their faith, right? As they go out in their real world and contribute as citizens without the risk of being objectified. So here is the point that, and it's important because she's talking about Canadian environment, and she's saying that hijab does not let her body being objectified. Muslim women wearing the hijab do not intend to polemicize a pro-hijab stance, right? Rather to articulate in the broader scheme of things, meeting the basics of the threshold of the basic threshold of basic human rights. To ensure and guarantee the right to religious expression and freedom from discrimination. So I think here she's only trying to emphasize that Muslim women should not be forced to not wear hijab, as was happening in France, for example. I think after a lot of terrorism, France had made it a rule that Muslim women should not wear hijab if they are living in France or entering France. And there was a lot of resistance against this thing, against this order of the state. So it is only saying here that, the country should guarantee the right to religious expression and freedom from discrimination. If you are telling a Muslim woman not to wear hijab, you are actually discriminating her and you are taking away her right to freedom of expression. I think in this Google Classroom, you will probably find links to different actions by different governments for hijab wearing women. Let's try looking at a hijab ban in France, it says here. Can you hear it?
No, miss.
Okay, let me play. Can you see it again?
Yeah, we can see it, but I can't hear it.
I feel all mixed up.
Je vois pas du tout.
I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Je sais plus où j'en suis.
One minute I'm revising it now.
Well, it doesn't matter. You go straight to the hall like everybody else.
Près de 12 millions d'élèves.
12 million pupils returned to school today, the day on which the new law on secularism banning conspicuous religious symbols in schools comes into force. The law is at the heart of the hostage crisis in Iraq, where 2 French journalists are being held captive. The last ultimatum of the kidnappers expired last night.
Hier soir.
On va voir ce que ça donne aujourd'hui.
Let's see what happens today.
Aujourd'hui, c'est
the first day of term, 2,000 pupils will be returning.
Des 2000 élèves.
History teacher Eric Fino is hoping the hostage crisis will undermine any opposition to the law at school.
It certainly led to Muslim fundamentalist organizations in France keeping a lower profile. The same ones who advised the girls to force the issue with the veil are now advising them to take it off. So in that sense, it has had an impact.
In their head. They said, you're not going to give up school over an air issue. I said it's true, but it's difficult.
Monsieur le Président adjoint.
Deputy Head, which one is it? Well, she's got to take it all off.
C'est Fatoumata qui j'avais demandé à mon adjoint de la reprendre en entretien.
It's Fatoumata. We're having to take her aside to re-explain the law.
Qui met un peu de...
And she's doing it deliberately. I'm not asking her to say, "Sir, you're right," with a big smile on her face. But she's got to accept the law. We're going to have trouble with this one.
If it applies to everybody, why is it that there are girls wearing trousers with skirts and they're not called in?
Because you're wearing black and these are conspicuous religious symbols. I mean, just put on a light-coloured anorak. I've got no problem with that.
Fatoumata, tu vas pas te discuter.
Fatoumata, don't argue about the details.
To me, there are more than details.
Okay, now that's enough. Are you writing a letter of resignation? Do you want to leave school? Is that what you want? Do you want to leave school? It's not a problem.
Stop pushing me into a corner.
I'm only asking you a question. I haven't had a reply. I'm asking you a question.
If I wanted to leave school, I wouldn't have come.
Well then, if you want to continue with your studies, which I encourage...
Right. So you may have noticed that this ban on hijab in France actually pushed students to get rid of the veil or hijab being a religious symbol. And the interviewer was actually asking her to either leave school or to leave hijab because France had put ban on any kind of religious symbol, and hijab was a religious symbol. And woman was insisting on her right to express herself, and she thought that the ban actually was taking away her right to freedom to religion, right? So it says that ban was because it was considered a religious symbol, and the woman wanted her right to express herself socially and religiously. It says that the headscarf was a topic of debate for many policy influencers. We clearly noticed that in this clip, we were talking about influence of government policies. So policy influences means that somebody thought that hijab could be behind a lot of terrorism around the world. So even if women were not interested in large numbers for terrorism around the world, hijab was identified as a symbol of terror, right? So when it was accepted as a symbol of terror, and policymakers actually influenced the formation of this law that hijab should be banned in France. So the woman in the interviewee actually said, "You are pushing me to corner by asking me to either leave hijab or leave university." And he said, "You are free to do that. You can leave the university." And she said, "You are pushing me to the corner. You're not giving me my freedom or the right to freedom to express myself," right? So the tension was between social and personal identity. It often leads to a misconstructed image and representation. I think before we read the rest of it, it's a very short article. Let's also look at these images. So Marjan's therapy, in the first image on the left, she says, "This is me when I was 10 years old." This was in 1980. So if you look at what she says before making these caricatures of herself or her life, she's talking about what was happening in Iran until 1979 and what was happening on the globe over the 20th century, because it says that when Iran found a lot of oil in the country, Britain was the first to influence its internal policies. And Iran refused to come under the British policies or to policies that the world was forcing on Iran because it had found oil in the country. So Iran resisted to many of these policies. Iran also nationalized oil. So when you nationalize oil, these people, these great oil, collectors around the world, you may have heard that Bush, for example, owns the largest. He has stored oil. He owns largest reserves of oil in the world, right? So you can see that when Iran changes its law or rule and it starts owning the oil nationally or nationalizes oil resources, it creates a problem for the rest of the world, because no individual can sell all of its oil, all of his oil at less price to anywhere, to anyone from the world, to Bush or to the big companies in any part of the West. So this short text that is appearing on the first or second page, it only says that this oil race actually resulted in removal of Raza Shah Pahlavi in 1935, and and after Raza Shah Pahlavi, his son Raza became after Raza Shah Pahlavi, Raza Shah the son became the king of Iran, and he was only known as Shah of Iran. But what actually happened that after some time, Raza Shah Pahlavi returned to Iran, and he was in power again. So this part is only talking about like how the West tried to manipulate Iran because it has large oil reserves. And what happens that when after the revolution, they started saying, the Western media started talking about oppression in Iran, fanaticism in Iran, fundamentalism in Iran. And by promoting this kind of images about Iran, Western media actually hid, these images or their real intentions under these images of fundamentalism and fanaticism. So the world was not talking about the great oil reserves of Iran that Western society wanted control of, but they were talking about only fundamentalism and fanaticism that was highlighted. It says that Great Britain organized an embargo on all exports of oil from Iran in 1953, right? But when Shah stayed on the throne until 97 and fled, and after the because of the Islamic Revolution, the whole thing changed. It says that Iran's image became the image of fundamentalism, fanaticism, and terrorism, but this image is incorrect. So Marjan Strapi, despite talking about these images of women, she says that the world talks about oppression in Iran and fundamentalism in Iran, but it does not essentially mean that the images are right, because the reality is the attack on Iran's great oil reserves. So she says that she is in this left image at the age of 10 when she all of a sudden learned that she had to wear hijab. And in the second image, she is showing that she is sitting with a number of her 10-year-old friends at school, and all of them are wearing hijab. In the next image, she is showing protests. In 1979, when Iran became the Islamic Republic of Iran after the Islamic Revolution. In the next one on the right, you can see that these little girls do not want to wear hijab, and they are saying, "Oh, I am hot. I don't want to wear it." But it was obligatory in school in 1980 to wear the hijab. In the next one, you can see that these little girls are playing during the break time at school, and one or the other has pulled off her scarf, and somebody is trying to put the scarf back on her head. For example, this image in the middle actually shows the execution in the name of freedom. The girl in scarf is trying to grab throat of the girl who has removed hijab from her head, and this girl on the left is saying, "Oh, it's too hot out," so she removes hijab. So here is another girl in the front that says, "I am the monster of darkness." So she just removes her hijab, and somebody perhaps calls her monster of darkness. So she is actually mentioning or talking about a number of mixed emotions that these little girls of 10 years of age are going through after hijab was imposed in Iran, or it became obligatory in Iran after the Iranian Revolution. Right, so this is a long book, and this is only full of images of this kind, and I think it would be interesting for you to look at images or the visual medium, because this is looking at a real life situation or experience of a nation with hijab over a period of time. Since 1979, more than 40 years have passed. And we can see that Marjan Strapi is actually taking us through the history of hijab through this article. It says that in the left image on the left side, it says that before 1979, we were studying in a French co-education school. So you can see that boys and girls are running together in the school courtyard. And in the right picture, it says where boys and girls were together, right? In the next one, it says that, next one on the left-hand side, and then suddenly in 1980, all bilingual schools were closed in Iran because one of these leaders, religious leaders, said these bilingual schools are symbols of capitalism. And somebody, you can see the audience sitting in front of this leader. There are men on the left saying bravo, and the women in abaya on the right hand side say what wisdom. So these men or women are actually celebrating wisdom of this great leader, that he says that co-ed schools are symbols of capitalism, right? So this leader is saying, now you look at the close-up of this man, and he says co-ed schools are symbols of decadence. This is called a cultural revolution. So they are calling it a symbol of decadence, and then moving on to cultural revolution in Iran. More pictures keep on showing these women protesting, so women on the left are saying the veil, and women on the right are not wearing any veil, and they are demanding the freedom. So you can see that Iran was going through this kind of reactions by people, different kind of people, despite despite the Islamic Revolution and abaya being obligatory on everyone. At one of the demonstrations, a German journalist took a photo of my mother. So this is Marjan Strapi's mother without the veil, standing in a demonstration. And I was really proud of my mother. Her photo was published in all the European newspapers because she had the courage, apparently the courage to not wear veil when it had become obligatory on everyone. So you can see that these images are actually showing a history of resistance, a history not just of resistance, but of a few other things. So I would suggest that if you have time, try try going through these images, and also look at these images images that reflect on history of abaya in a particular nation, and in this case an Iranian nation, because somebody had the courage to draft what she thinks. And this again is very important in the sense because we can see that a woman is writing it, right? So again, if a woman is writing it, the question goes back to what we discussed earlier, that these women in abaya are saying that they are empowered, because abaya abaya is a barrier between a woman's objectification by any other gender, right? Okay, so it says here that Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom states, regardless of whether one is a Canadian citizen or an individual, These fundamental freedom, namely freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, and freedom of thought, freedom of belief, freedom of expression and association are applicable to all. So if the law says that people have freedom, I think France also had similar law before they put ban on hijab, right? And we just watched that film that actually was showing showing a ban on hijab in France. Okay, so it does imply that countries do change their laws anytime. Hijab actually identified a woman as a Muslim woman, which means that even the religion became a stereotype, right? And young Muslim women are reclaiming the hijab and reinterpreting it in the line of its original purpose. So she's saying that the women who are part of this research are actually reclaiming it, and they do not believe it's a symbol of oppression. Okay, so it does say that women get ultimate control of their bodies in hijab. In a qualitative study conducted with a few participants, Hiba states she is terrified to practice faith by putting on hijab in the fear of getting rejected by society. She lives in Canada, and she feels that if she wears hijab, the common Canadian citizen or people or peers will reject her. So she has fear of rejection by the society because of the hijab. There is another woman, Bullock is the name, and she says that she also thinks that hijab is a tool of empowerment. Muslim women can use hijab to reassure society that wearing a hijab is not a form of oppression, but rather personal choice, and that should be represented as a basic human right in Canada. Okay. Okay. So this, she also said that hijab surely is not a form of oppression, and it is not a symbol of female subordination in the Muslim faith. So she's, I think we can try evaluating her comment, because she's saying that hijab is not a form of subordination. Do you agree with her? Do you agree that hijab is not a form of oppression or subordination? If you write, for example, hijab here, and if you try to Google images of hijab, you will come across some very strong images. So here I'm only looking at hijabs of different kinds. Hijab as oppression. Okay, let's see what it says. Now the images have changed. It says that this woman needs help, and the veil is women's liberation, right? So we can also see symbol of peace, the pigeons in another image. So we can see that different kind of media images have been created, this hijab. So we can actually try seeing that it says that that this woman says that it's not a symbol of subordination. Karen 2006 states that the construction of female identity in respect to a woman's ability to dress in the way that are attractive to women. So basically, I think she is pointing to Western modes of showing women's images, especially advertising, because advertising focuses, or marketing also, that focuses on dressing women in ways that are attractive to men, right? So I think Laura Mulvey also said the same thing, that Hollywood films present woman's body as something that should attract women. Sorry, that should attract men. So films use women and their bodies to attract male audience in cinema, and advertising does the same thing. So in other words, Karen is trying to say that Western media tries to create gaze at women's body. So that's a way of subordinating women. uh, I think this is a counter argument that women's objectification by Western media makes them subordinate to men, while hijab gives them freedom because they free their bodies from male gaze, and they are not subordinate to men. Do you agree with this perspective? Do you agree with Karen's point of view that Western media allows you to gaze at women's bodies, so that means Western media allows you to make them subordinate by gazing on their bodies? While I believe that American dream and Western media actually say women are free because they can live the way they want, or they can dress the way they want in Western societies. They have the freedom to wear, to fully cover their dress, or to wear minimal dress and show their bodies. So this is what Western media or Western societies call freedom of women to be what they want to be. While this article is actually saying that the Western media and advertising uses women's bodies for creating gaze on them, or for attracting male audience. So that is actually a way of subordinating women to men. Do you agree with her point of view, or do you think that that Suzanne Kanso is wrong, and if Western women can dress the way they want to dress, or they can beautify themselves in any manner they want, it is an expression of freedom? Or do you think it's an expression of subordination?
Miss, the freedom to wear what they want, how can that possibly be like a form of oppression? Like, I didn't quite understand the question.
The question is the same. You are right that how can that be form of oppression? I said Karen here is saying, Karen here says that
Yes.
the construction of female identity in respect to a woman's ability to dress in ways that are attractive to men, right? So
Yes.
see, women's dress in ways that are attractive to men. So
Yes.
she's calling this subordination. She's calling this is subordination.
Right.
So I was asking, do you agree with her point of view? She's saying that if women wear in ways that are attractive to men, that is woman's subordination.
Yes, Miss, I actually do kind of agree, because in some way you can interpret this as women participating in their own oppression without realizing it. On a subconscious level, they would think that they're not doing that. This does not oppress them in any way. But if you theorize this and if you go really deep into it, you realize that subconsciously they're doing exactly that, and that they're sexualizing their own selves. So, but they don't realize it.
Yeah, so this is her point of view, no? That's why I'm saying that this is a point of view. She thinks that subordination is in the ways Western media uses women's body to attract male.
Yes.
Okay. So she says that what it means to wear the hijab surpasses the defined stereotypical norm outlined by society, Western society, I believe. She says that Islam does subordinate women by forcing this thing, by forcing hijab on them, but Western societies also subordinate women through their by using their bodies to attract male. Okay. So right here, she is only talking about hijab serving multiple purposes and not just just something to be associated with the faith. It says that wearing the hijab was a personal choice of mine. It's very interesting that this author was wearing hijab when she was very young, but she stopped wearing hijab when she was older and had graduated from university. So I think that it becomes interesting because she says she was empowered. She felt empowered when she was in puberty, and then she stopped wearing hijab when she had graduated from the university. So I think that is an interesting story in terms of analysis because puberty and post-graduation periods actually imply that she's more mature when she stopped wearing the hijab. So we can try analyzing why she stopped wearing hijab when she graduated from the university. Here it says that personal experiences with the hijab, wearing the hijab was a personal choice of mine and not one that was enforced upon me by my parents, as the alienated picture is typically painted. Most of the times we are saying that families are forcing their children or daughters to wear hijab. So she's insisting that she had the freedom of choice. Uh, she was brought up in a particular family, and at 13, she first wore her hijab. I wonder if, as a child, she had not realized uh, that she was wearing hijab back because she had believed that hijab is important for a Muslim woman, right? She's a child at 13. She says that it was one of the hardest things to endure as a kid because of the marginalization she experienced outside from people and society at large. She was subjugated to spiteful words and had to fight back with diplomatic approaches. She says that she in this process she learned how to be Canadian and how to be a Muslim at the same time, and how to create balance between her Canadian image and Muslim image, and how to integrate both the worlds into one life, right? So she had to be Canadian and she had to be Muslim, and she wanted to wear hijab at 13. When exposed to demeaning comments like people called her towel head, people called her terrorist, I can understand it happened to her because the past 2 decades of this century actually showed a lot of terrorism to the world, and Western world was actually calling people terrorists if they were wearing any kind of Muslim symbols. And in this case, she said that she was wearing hijab and people called her towel head and terrorist. She was accused of carrying bombs in her backpack. Society, by definition, ostracized her self-identification, and I think it was cruel in the sense that she was only 13 years old when she's wearing hijab and she is called a terrorist by the society, and she feels that society is ostracizing her self-identification. Society forbade and stripped me away from enjoying the innocent pleasures and privileges of being a kid. So you can understand that if she was cornered at 13 after wearing this, it was very difficult. It was a difficult situation. She says at 25, at age 25, so she's double age at the time. She made a difficult decision of her life because she got rid of her identity. And she says that she's talking about self. She stopped wearing scarf to fit societal expectations and pay past due bills. She says that her hair was beautiful, her hair was impressively flattering, and uh, when she started showing her hair or head, she immediately got a job, right? And she landed in a career because of her long, beautiful hair, and she relieved herself from reaching the 3-year mark of unemployment. That sounds like in Canada, perhaps young people do not get jobs for 3 years after graduating from the universities. So she's saying that she is lucky that she got a job soon, but it happened only when she removed her hijab. So, do you want to comment on wearing hijab at 13 by choice, and again leaving hijab at 25 years of age by choice? Do you think that this choice factor was actually there because she was immature when she was 13? She says her mother did not, her parents did not push it on her, but she started wearing the hijab. She has not discussed she has not discussed anything about her environment, about the people she has been meeting, about any kind of religious activity or religious congregation that she had attended at the time she was 13 years old. She's not saying her home was a religious home. She's only saying that she belongs to a Muslim family. She has not described if that was a liberal family, modern family, or a traditional family. She has not shared any information about the family, about social relationships. She says that she is Caucasian, because she says she is part Lebanese, part Turkish, and part Argentinian. So I think that these three identities actually solve the ambiguity that her name is Suzanne Kanso, right? Because it's not an ordinary Muslim name like Fatma or Zahra or Khadija, etc. She has a very special and a different name, and that sounds more Western than a Muslim name. So, any comments on her decision, and especially her desire for insisting that when she was wearing hijab at 12, 13 years of age, it was by choice, and when she stopped wearing hijab at 25, it's again by choice. How you would interpret it in the light of demands of a certain age group, or how would you analyze her behavior at this stage? Do you agree that she is doing it by choice, and what choice really means, as we are under the influence of various social factors or emotional factors that surround us all the time, or beliefs that we have?
I think, Miss, Isra, to फिर every single thing that we do between the age of, like, I don't know, 2 and 18, everything is influenced in some way or the other. It's not an original choice, or nothing is ever like originally yours at that age. So if her parents or if her immediate environment was not oppressive or forceful, then I think it was her choice. I mean, I know someone who started wearing hijab at the age of 7, and she did so because she grew up looking at her sister, who would, every day when she would get ready, so she was always observing her, the way she would accessorize her hijab and everything. So for her, it was like, when you look at your sister getting ready in the morning, fixing her hair, blow drying it, or doing whatever. So it's like, it's the same with the hijab. So that's what inspired her. She was genuinely like impressed by it. So it wasn't like after that, of course, she went through an entire struggle in which she used to get looked at differently and treated differently at school. But the very first decision, that was entirely hers to wear that hijab. So yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, so you're saying that it's the freedom to practice your norms and religion and your culture, and that is what the law actually protects. That you should have the religion to protect and to even promote your norms, race, creed, or culture. So what she's doing it by choice. And yeah, I think you are right that we should not try to perhaps scrutinize it in terms of her uh, maturity at different ages. Okay, but then again, she says that she got job fairly quickly, and like much before any white Canadian will get it, because she says that she broke the 3-year mark of unemployment, which means it's common in America, in Canada, right? So yeah, I think that was interesting, because she's pointing to her physical beauty, right? She's talking about her hair. She's saying that her beautiful hair helped her in finding a job. So I was only interested in this complication, uh, because she's talking about a specific type of gain, which in many cases we would call worldly gain.
But then she's probably referring to lookism, right? I mean, so many people, miss out on so many opportunities based on the way they look. So then that's not necessarily restricted to, or centered around the issue of the hijab. It's just about the way you look.
Okay.
If you're attractive, physically attractive, then you get to be exposed to a lot more opportunities in life. But what I found interesting was that sentence where she says, "Today I wear my hijab in my heart." What is that supposed to mean? Like, isn't that like unnecessarily, like broadening the...
I wonder if she's talking about her belief system. If she says she wears her hijab in her heart, she's actually reclaiming that she's a Muslim, and she's a believer. She's perhaps trying to say that I have stopped wearing hijab, but it does not mean that I have left Islam or my own culture or norms behind. So she's perhaps trying to say that I wear hijab in my heart, which means that she was talking about modesty and purity earlier. So she's perhaps trying to say that I am still a very modest and a very pure person. Because in Canada or in Western world, the perspective of purity and modesty probably will be translated in a different way. I don't know what white women would say about their purity, or would they, if they even would think about modesty, because they will think about their freedom. I had a Norwegian poster. I'm sorry I haven't uploaded it in Google Classroom. But you will find the image in the poster very insulting to Muslim women in many ways, because in this poster, I can describe the image. In this poster, a white woman was sitting with her back towards the audience. So audience actually could not see the face. They could get a good view of her back. You could see a glass of wine or alcohol in her right hand. So while you were looking at her back, you were also seeing her right hand holding this glass of alcohol, right? And down the back, if you kept looking down, you would get a glimpse of her garter, or bikini you can talk about. So she used this outline of the garter to draw abaya, or the image of a woman in abaya. So actually the sides, the garter was used to show only the eyes of women in abaya. So you could see that this image or painting, I'm not sure if I'm properly explaining what it looked like, because if you look at the poster, you would immediately understand that she had drawn eyes within the outlines of the garter, and those were the eyes of women in hijab. So you could see that hijab was painted within the body of a Western woman who was actually wearing a bather or a bikini, and was showing her back to the audience. I think it was a very powerful poster in terms of negative expression against hijab or against Muslim women, because it also said my freedom is far more important than your hijab. So despite being negative, it was very well drawn, and the image was very strong, and I can say that it was a negative strong image against women in abaya, whereby a white woman sat with a glass of alcohol in her hand, showing her back and showing Muslim woman's eyes in abaya within the outline of her garter. Okay, so anyway, this research actually breaks the stereotypes of empowerment. Girls who want to wear hijab have the opportunity to flourish in their own skin and create a safe space for them to identify in whichever shape they want to represent themselves. So I think it's at least important that after calling abaya or hijab a symbol of oppression for a very long time, a Western TV channel and a Western society is conducting research on Muslim women in the Western world, because right now we are talking about a Muslim woman from Canada. So she says, my hijab is my identity, my right, my voice, my freedom. I'm not oppressed because I wear it. I'm rather oppressed when I'm forced to take it off. As a Canadian from birth, we are taught from our Canadian Constitution the freedom of choice. So I question the validation and authenticity of such a law when in practice. So if the law would force her to take it off, she would say the law is not authentic. So I can again see that she is questioning the validation of law. Again, if a woman is questioning the validation of law, she has the right to express herself and right to challenge that what kind of laws do we have if we are oppressing women not to wear it. My hijab does not represent who I am as a person. I am not a religion, nor am I a topic of discussion for your political agenda and societal approval. So she is actually demanding that this is not a topic that should be discussed in, for example, National Assembly or Senate or by the government. She's saying it's my right to wear it. do not use it as an agenda on your list of political goals. For example, Donald Trump did use it during his election campaign, because Donald Trump kept on saying after the Orlando disaster that these foreigners come and destroy or take away Americans' right to American dream, or Americans' right to be what they want to be, to have a gender, what they want to have, to declare themselves as transgenders if they want, or the freedom of their women. So basically, you can see that right now these women are actually challenging that their image or their veiled image should not be used for achieving political goals, or for having it on on political agenda for societal approval. So basically, she is questioning everything. So I can understand that these images are very important, because Muslim women are trying to learn their own identity, and they are trying to express that hijab is not a symbol of oppression. Right. So I would suggest that if if interested, just look at these things. I would just look at 2-3 quotes from here. It says women and representation, and I mentioned that this is in the book on film theory and criticism. It says feminist film criticism is the examination of the fact that women are not represented in cinema, right? And they do not have a voice. The female point of view is not heard. So film is made from a male's perspective. Most screenwriters are men. And if most critics keep on saying that films are produced to entertain men, so it becomes an interesting question that what are women doing in cinemas if they are sitting there in cinemas to watch film? So this is just saying that women in any fully human form have almost completely been left out of film. So it is the film theory is actually pointing to women's perspective or women's take on film. These theorists actually think that women are shown as child versus woman, whores, bitches, wives, mothers, secretaries or girlfriends, frigid, career woman or vamp, right? So as I said before, that in many cases, these are the only stereotypes, and it says that these are false images and one-dimensional images. So basically, women's take on their representation is another point. This is mentioned here. I think we discussed similar things when we were discussing visual pleasure in Hollywood film or visual pleasure in Pakistani cinema. So these points are quite similar to those discussed during those discussions. So again, I would say that if you attempt any of the questions, any of the exam questions on visual pleasure, I would suggest that try looking at this chapter as well, because this chapter in the book Film Theory and Criticism is focusing on women's point of view about their representation in cinema or TV. And you can see that in fact, many different authors are mentioned in the this article as well. For example, it says Norm Gilbert says the female is portrayed within an archetypal ambivalence, the eternal feminine, because films do emphasize on femininity. So eternal feminine becomes important, and aesthetics, film aesthetics, actually take that form. A principle for realizing male objectives than a person in her own right. So if we are talking about eternal feminine, we are again talking about male objective. Okay, so Norm Gilbert actually only says that the dynamics of myth and reality are mixed up. So female aesthetic becomes missing because male aesthetic is used for objectifying women. Okay, so I'm just suggesting that try reading this article as well, because it says that male aesthetic is actually behind male's fear and desire of objectifying women. Okay, fear or desire behind objectification of women. So I'm just saying that when you pick up a question for midterm or final, just try seeing this article as well. You can definitely find other research to support your argument. I was looking for this image of women in abaya when I tried to Google, because there was one very powerful image. I'm not sure if I posted it here. Because in that particular image, there were, you can say, hordes of Muslim women in black abaya and a white woman standing in their middle in red scarf. So I thought that was a very powerful image, because women in black abaya were invisible. You could only see the black abaya. You could not see even the eyes of Muslim women. You know, it was a very powerful image because the white woman in red stood out. Okay, any comment on images of Muslim women in Western content, or any comment on any of these articles? No comment? All right, okay, think about it.
मैम मैंने चेक किया गूगल क्लासरूम, तो वहां पर तीन असाइनमेंट्स मेरे ख्याल से पोस्ट हुई है, मिड की, फाइनल की और एक प्रेजेंटेशन है.
यस, प्रेजेंटेशन तो आपका जो मिड और फाइनल होगा उसी को हम प्रेजेंटेशन में चेंज कर लेंगे ना. यू कैन ऑल्सो चेंज एनी ऑफ योर असाइनमेंट इनटू प्रेजेंटेशन एज वेल. अगर आप चाहें तो असाइनमेंट से भी प्रेजेंटेशन क्रिएट कर सकते हैं.
ठीक है, लेकिन मैम ये अपने वो मिड कब वो खाली है? मैं लास्ट क्लास में नहीं था, तो वो मिड में क्या उसका है वो तो मुझे समझ
नहीं, मिड खाली नहीं है. आपने कब देखा था?
मैंने सुबह जब जैसे ही आया मुझे नोटिफिकेशन, मैंने चेक किया.
हाँ, वो मैंने वो पहले उसका टॉपिक क्रिएट करना पड़ता है ना. टॉपिक क्रिएट करने के बाद उसमें एग्जाम पोस्ट होता है. तो सुबह जब आपने देखा, ये इस वक्त आपको स्क्रीन नजर आ रही होगी कि जब मैंने सुबह उसको पोस्ट किया तो ये है मिड टर्म, राइट. सो सबसे पहले ये क्रिएट किया, उसके नीचे ये मिड टर्म सारा पोस्ट हुआ हुआ है.
ठीक हो गया ये. अच्छा, वो मैं दूसरे का देख रहा था, उसका भी, उसकी भी डिटेल्स आ गई है, वुमेन एंड मीडिया.
हाँ, वो सब सारी आ गई हैं, क्योंकि इसमें ये गूगल क्लासरूम जो है ये स्टेप बाय स्टेप काम करते हैं. तो फर्स्ट यू क्रिएट अ टॉपिक, देन यू क्रिएट मटेरियल इनसाइड द टॉपिक. आप ये देख रहे हैं ना, यहाँ इट सेज क्रिएट टॉपिक. टॉपिक क्रिएट किया, फिर मटेरियल क्रिएट किया, फिर उसमें अपलोड किया. तो आई थिंक द मिनट आई क्रिएटेड द टॉपिक यू मे हैव रिसीव्ड एन इनविटेशन, राइट. तो उसमें जितनी देर में मैंने मटेरियल पोस्ट किया, आपको एक से ज्यादा आई होंगी नोटिफिकेशंस.
जी मैम, एक से ज्यादा यही थी, ये जो जितनी भी आपने पोस्ट की है ना, बात लास्ट आई है प्रेजेंटेशन की, वो मैंने पढ़ ली थी कि वो किसी भी एक असाइनमेंट को हम प्रेजेंट कर सकते हैं स्लाइड्स बना के।
हाँ, क्योंकि उसमें तो आपको कुछ अपलोडेड नजर नहीं आ रहा ना, सो इट इज सेइंग presentation
नहीं,
is
अब आगे थे।
presentation says present any of your assignments or exam for this class. ठीक है,
जी
तो जब हम मिसोजिनी डिस्कस कर रहे थे, somebody said कि she did not know that she could prepare a PowerPoint presentation, तो मैंने इसके अंदर खुद लिख दिया. So it's मिसोजिनी फिलोजिनी के केस में तो it was up to students to decide what they want to do. इसमें जरा है कि presentation normally makes it easier for everyone to understand what you are discussing. तो इस वजह से ये कर दिया मैंने. So I think I'll wait for a few minutes ताकि when more students are here, I tell you what to do in the exam. In fact, I think some of the students, you are talking about another class. Sorry, we started discussing presentations of the other class, women and media class. Because इस क्लास में तो हमने presentations नहीं ली अभी तक.
जी इसमें वो मिसोजिनी फिलोजिनी वाली दूसरी women and media
जी women and media में थी. How many people are in both classes? I think आप हैं, आमना वहीद है, or anybody else who is in both classes? You don't know. Okay.
मैम ये क्वेश्चन ए और बी में मैं थोड़ा सा ये बता दें कि ए में जो 1 2 3 4 इस तरह करके जो आपने पॉइंट्स दिए हैं, फिर उसके बाद बी में भी उससे आगे फर्दर है 9 10, तो ये किस तरह अटेम्प्ट करना है? अटेम्प्ट क्वेश्चन ए और
असल
बी
में आपको सिर्फ एक ही क्वेश्चन अटेम्प्ट करना है, आपको दोनों क्वेश्चंस नहीं करने.
ये एक के इतने पार्ट्स हैं, मतलब पहले क्वेश्चन के हैं 8 पॉइंट्स, तो ये सारे अटेम्प्ट करने हैं अगर ए करते हैं?
नहीं, it says only attempt only one question. It says attempt A or B. ठीक है, और उसके बाद it says write a research paper on one of the following topics. तो आपने A में जब आप जाते हैं तो A does not ask you to attempt all the questions. A says attempt only one question.
Okay.
अब देख रहे हैं ना, A में लिखा है write a research paper on one of the following prompts. तो it means कि आपको इनमें से you need to pick up only one question. ये इधर से खोल लेते हैं, ये जरा ज्यादा क्लियर है. ठीक है, यहाँ से
खोला होगा मैंने.
जी. So it says attempt only one question. ठीक है, ऊपर आपसे ये जरूर कह रहा है कि attempt A और B, लेकिन जब आप जब A में जाते हैं तो A says write a research paper on one of the following prompts. तो आपको सिर्फ एक क्वेश्चन पिक करना है. वो क्वेश्चन आप A में से भी ले सकते हैं और वो क्वेश्चन आप B में भी ले सकते हैं, क्योंकि सबसे पहले आपको ये कह रहा है A और B, तो आपको A और B दोनों
मतलब इनमें से हम ये भी कर सकते हैं कि अगर मिड टर्म हमने ए में से किया तो फाइनल बी में से कर सकते हैं, इसमें भी कोई वो नहीं है. जिसमें से मिड करना है उसी में से फाइनल करना है, ऐसी तो कोई वो रिस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं.
आपने फाइनल का क्वेश्चन पेपर देख लिया?
हम ये इसमें ये लिखा, इसमें फाइनल इन्हीं में से नहीं, फाइनल का
ये देखें, ये लिखा, ये आपका मिड टर्म एग्जाम है, राइट? It says attempt A or B. आपको इस पूरे क्वेश्चन पेपर में से सिर्फ एक क्वेश्चन करना है. You are not attempting 2 questions. You will attempt only 1 question. The only thing that I require is that कि आप अपने क्वेश्चन पेपर में गूगल क्लासरूम में जो रीडिंग्स पोस्ट हुई हुई हैं या गूगल क्लासरूम में जो फिल्म्स मौजूद हैं, उनमें से भी कुछ चीज़ें, कुछ फिल्म्स या रीडिंग्स अपने एग्जाम में डिस्कशन में शामिल करें. So you can pick up quotations, or you can, apart from quotations, you can paraphrase material from what I have posted in Google Classroom. So you can use those materials for discussion. तो ये आपको सिर्फ इतना ही कह रहा है कि आप use these things. ठीक है? So जी लाइबा. Sorry तानिया. जी.
Yeah, I just saw the final and the midterm, so they have like the same question. So if I choose one
Yes, ma'am.
one topic for my midterm, can I use it for my final as well? But like I will increase the work.
Yes, okay. It has many similar questions. There may be one or two more questions in the final because let me check. This mid has 10 questions. Let's read the questions first, right? So I have explained that you are attempting only one out of these 10 questions. There are 10 questions here. So you will attempt only one question, but there is a difference between A and B, right? A is giving you 8 options to write a research paper. B is not a research paper. B is a script writing exercise, right? So I allow my students to write script for this class if they do not want to write a research paper for this class. So 8 of the questions are actually research paper questions, which means that if you attempt a question from A, you will be writing a research paper, a normal research paper that one may have written for the psychology class or liberal arts class, right? Or even women and media class. Question B is asking you to write script. It is saying to develop a script from one of the theories, right? So it's just asking you to select theories from Google Classroom, only the theories that we have discussed, use them for writing script. For example, we discussed a paper in both classrooms. There is only one reading which was common in both classrooms. It was on visual pleasure, right? Were you present when we discussed visual pleasure in Pakistani cinema and visual pleasure in narrative cinema by Laura Mulvey?
Yes, miss.
Okay. So I'll give you an example that, in fact, I think I have posted one of student assignments in Google Classroom as well. I can show you. One of the students had actually used What Shapes Myself to write a script for a children's program. Because in What Shapes Myself, children were discussing, if you recall, we had children from Mexico, from Colombia, from Syria, from Thailand, right? Do you remember what we discussed in What Shapes Myself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So all those children were talking about their different experiences. I can try showing you what I mean. It allows you to use the research for writing script. Okay. Let me open What Shapes Myself. So here is What Shapes Myself by Nancy Jennings. So you'll find children talking about their experiences in lives. One child says, my family is very important, my friends are very important, my mother loves me, my father loves me, I am my father's dream, etc. So this kind of statement can be used as a dialogue in the script, right? And it means that while writing that dialogue, we can use some of these children as characters in that script, right? We can say that one child is from Germany and another child is from Syria, another is from Thailand, or we can say the girls belong to Germany or USA, etc. So we can pick up a few different characters from here, and then we can show a little boy reproducing his own body, which means that he's making a drawing, He's drawing something on paper, on chart paper, and you actually see that he is, what he draws on the chart paper is the reproduction of self. You know, he draws the picture of a boy who also is wearing dress like himself, right? So I said you can use this theory or any other theory to develop a script, right? Or if we go to another theory from right here, you know, like we can develop some ideas from concept, from this one, emotions, right? Emotions has different concepts, and we can create some dialogues from that particular paper as well. When we go to visual pleasure, you can see that it starts from this point where it says that in the past 2 decades, Pakistani cinema billboards were damaged. So we can show a character standing by roadside at night or late at night, and he probably is holding you know, something like a shopping bag full of ink. You may be aware that students used to do this kind of ragging in the past, that whenever new students joined the university, I think it was happening too frequently at National College of Arts, because students can actually climb up the roof of different buildings. So students will go up the roof and throw a shopping bag full of water on another student. They could do it even on the ground as well, but I'm just giving that example to show that a shopping bag can be filled with liquid ink or water and can be used to target something. So here we see a character standing by the standing on the road late at night, holding a shopping bag full of ink, and he will throw this ink on the billboard, right? So I'm saying that there are things mentioned here that can be used to develop a script. All right. So then it says, if you go further down, it says that for example, it mentions a celebrity, and it also mentions a model, which means that you can add 3 characters in the script. One is a religious adherent, other is a celebrity or a model, and assuming that celebrity comes from the from the red light area, and the model is somebody who speaks in English very well. So these 3 characters will appear with different, will have different appearances, and they will have their own dialogues. Maybe the model is asking the religious adherent, why are you throwing ink on my face on the billboard? You know, so all I'm saying that, can you see these papers? I have opened the files right here. Can you see them?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm saying that option B is asking you to write script. It's not asking you to write essay. Jahangir, did you say you were from theater, film and TV department?
No, ma'am, I'm from SMC.
Oh, okay, from SMC, right? Not TFT, but SMC. But you know, with media, you are familiar with media productions, with documentary or television program making, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you're also aware of script writing, because you may have some script writing courses.
मैम स्क्रिप्ट राइटिंग का वो कोर्स तो वैसे जो टीवी शोज की तरह वो ग्रुप में फिर वो काम डिवाइड हो जाता था, लेकिन तो मतलब स्क्रिप्ट राइटिंग पार्ट था थोड़ा बहुत, इतना मेजर नहीं था, बहुत माइनर था।
आपका कौन सा सेमेस्टर है?
मैम मेरे बस ये लास्ट 2 इलेक्टिव ही है जो मैं आपसे पढ़ रहा हूँ, मेरे सारे कोर्स कंप्लीट है।
आपके सारे कोर्सेज कंप्लीट हो चुके हैं। ओके, मैं आपको ये बताती हूँ कि यहाँ गूगल क्लासरूम में एक थ्योरी पड़ी हुई है। I'll show you that theory. वो कॉन्स्पिरेसी थ्योरी के नाम से यहाँ पे मौजूद है। अंडर द हेडिंग ऑफ प्रोपेगेंडा नेशनलिज्म वॉर। हमने इसमें से 2 टॉपिक्स डिस्कस किए ना, 11th and 13th of July we discussed atomic on 11th we discussed the atomic cafe, and on 13th we discussed triumph and battleship Potemkin, right? यहाँ पे ये एक लास्ट रीडिंग पड़ी हुई है कॉन्स्पिरेसी के नाम से। ये असल में 9/11 पे है, और आपके सीनियर स्टूडेंट ने शर्जील ताहिर उसका नाम था, शर्जील सबमिटेड हिज thesis in 2018, about 2 years ago. तो आप कह सकते हैं कि शर्जील was your 2 year senior. What he had done कि उसने इस क्लास के फाइनल एग्जाम में मिड में he had given an essay, but in final he decided he will write script. I'm not sure कि आपने उसकी फिल्म देखी भी है, but you may have seen. Do you go to thesis exhibitions of TFT?
नहीं मैम, मैं नहीं।
अच्छा, क्योंकि वो ऑडिटोरियम में स्क्रीनिंग करते हैं एंड नॉर्मली इट इज़ फॉर द होल यूनिवर्सिटी, सो एनीबडी कैन वॉच दीज फाइनल थीसिस फिल्म्स जब हम इनको वहाँ पे एग्जिबिट करते हैं ना ऑडिटोरियम में। तो शर्जील ने कॉन्स्पिरेसी थ्योरी को चेंज किया था इन स्क्रिप्ट, जो उसने इस क्लास में सबमिट किया, और फिर उसको चूंकि थीसिस प्रपोजल देना था तो उसने इसी स्क्रिप्ट को थीसिस प्रपोजल में दे दिया एंड द प्रपोजल वाज अप्रूव्ड। ठीक है, तो शर्जील ने 58 मिनट्स की फिल्म प्रोड्यूस की थी ऑन कॉन्स्पिरेसी, जो कि यहाँ से काफ़ी सारे एलिमेंट्स लेके उसने क्रिएट की थी। सो दैट्स व्हाई आई एम सेइंग कि यहाँ पे जो है आपकी का जो क्वेश्चन टाइप बी एक्चुअली इज आस्किंग यू टू राइट स्क्रिप्ट, राइट? और मैंने आपको भी ये व्हाट शेप्स माई सेल्फ की एक एग्जाम्पल दी कि चिल्ड्रन कम फ्रॉम डिफरेंट कंट्री, सम चिल्ड्रन आर इन्फेक्टेड विद डिजीज एंड अदर चिल्ड्रन have seen a lot of suffering because of war in Syria, right? So children children are from different countries. They have seen different kind of circumstances in their countries. So the theory can actually be used for developing an interesting script, right? उसमें आपको कुछ चीज़ें तो I would prefer that most of the things should be taken from the paper, लेकिन कैरेक्टर्स को डेवलप करते हुए आप चूंकि theory डेवलप कर सकते हैं, डायलॉग डेवलप कर सकते हैं। फॉर इंस्टेंस celebrity and model keep on saying कि जी celebrity feels कि religious adherent उससे distantiated feel नहीं करता। When he is sitting in a cinema, he takes control of the woman within the diegesis, right? हमने पहले भी कहा था कि darkness of theater allows the viewer to take control of the woman within the diegesis through the image of his like, जो कि male protagonist होता है फिल्म के अंदर, right? तो अगर male protagonist wins the female protagonist, तो the viewer also get the same feeling. तो इस वजह से मैं आपसे कही थी कि you can use theory for writing script. यहाँ पे एक सैम्पल भी पड़ा हुआ है, if you keep going down it says library, उसके नीचे कहता है watch films, और उसके नीचे कहता है sample script from theory. ये आपको नजर आ रहा है? sample script from theory. जी. राइट यहाँ पे एक TFT की स्टूडेंट थी, उसने पिछले साल कंप्लीट किया, उसने भी 2018 में कंप्लीट किया, शर्जील की क्लास फेलो थी वो। तो सबा चाहिल एक्चुअली उसका स्क्रिप्ट मेरे पास चूंकि सॉफ्ट कॉपी मौजूद थी तो मैंने अपलोड कर दिया। she used one of these theories. It says सबा चाहिल फिल्म थ्योरी एंड क्रिटिसिज्म। आप देख रहे हैं यहाँ पे उसने डायलॉग लिखा हुआ है, राइट? और उसने अलबत्ता नाम जो हैं बच्चों को नाम दिए हैं, क्योंकि व्हाट शेप्स माई सेल्फ में बच्चों के नाम नहीं हैं। इट सेज अ चाइल्ड, अ 15-year child from, for instance, Mexico and a 6-year child from Colombia. इस तरह करके वो बात करता है, वो बच्चों को नाम नहीं देता। So for writing the script, Sabah had to give names to the characters, और उसमें उसने आप देख रहे होंगे कि उसने एक नया कैरेक्टर ऐड भी किया है यहाँ पे. आई थिंक शी एडेड द मदर, क्योंकि मदर तो थी ही नहीं ना उस ऐसे में, लेकिन डायलॉग्स वहीं से हैं. काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें उसमें सिचुएशंस डेवलप की. तो ये मैंने एक सैम्पल भी यहाँ पे अपलोड किया हुआ था कि जस्ट इन केस अगर कोई डालना चाहे. सबा से कहीं बेहतर स्क्रिप्ट था यमुना दस्ती का, बट somehow I did not have the hard, I only had the hard copy, I did not have the soft copy, और वो मैंने डिपार्टमेंट के आर्काइव्स में हैंड ओवर कर दिया. अदरवाइज आई वुड हैव पोस्टेड इट हियर, क्योंकि यमुना दस्ती ने यहाँ से एक और वो यूज़ किया था. What shapes myself में 2 आर्टिकल्स पोस्टेड हैं. वन इज What shapes myself and the other is boys, girls and their media experiences. ये भी हमने डिस्कस किया था in one of the first readings. So she used this one for writing her script. So that's why I'm saying if you want, you can actually develop script instead of developing an essay. Yes, आपको यहाँ पे जो question papers नजर आ रहे हैं for mid and final, of course there is a lot of similarity between the 2 question papers, which implies and which actually means that I am allowing students to start writing an essay now and develop it fully for writing, develop it fully by the final. So you can write, for example, 1,000 to 1,500 words paper now and can develop into a larger paper for the final exam, because in the meanwhile you will get back feedback from me on your first draft or your midterm. So when you start writing your final exam, you would already have feedback from me. So it looks like that mid and final are exactly the same in this case, in case of film theory and criticism. They may not be exactly the same in case of women and media. I think I added some more questions in women and media course. So please make sure if you want to start a paper on something, now you can also pick up a question from your final exam now. क्योंकि I said कि women and media में कोई difference हो सकती है between the 2 question papers. In case of film theory and criticism, it looks like both the question papers are exactly the same. So you start writing the paper now and develop it fully for the final. Okay. Have I answered your question, Dania?
Yes, miss. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So Laiba, do you have any question?
Miss, I have another question.
जी बताइए.
जो आपने अभी कहा था कि वो presentation है, it's for people like if you want to do an assignment or give a presentation, right?
नहीं, वो different course है. That is in women and media, because women and media में मैंने उनसे written assignment के बजाय presentations ली, right? And I also marked the presentations. So some people were not present and they missed their presentation. तो अब चूंकि presentation miss हो गई है, तो I don't want that they end up with 0. तो मैंने उनको अलाउ किया है कि वो मुझे अगर मुझे टाइम मिला क्योंकि 3-4 लोग ही आई थिंक रह गए थे, तो what I can do कि I take presentation from 1 student in every class. तो इस तरह 4 students 4 classes में cover हो जाएंगे. But if I am not able to do that, I do want कि students ने जो homework किया था on their topics, उसको वो एक essay की शक्ल में या assignment की शक्ल में मुझे submit कर दें, because it will show me what kind of homework they have done. तो इस कोर्स में तो मैंने चूंकि अभी तक कोई presentation नहीं ली, उन लोगों से assignment presentation की form मिली. So you can understand the style of assignment was different. Assignment was a presentation.
Oh, okay, miss. So we don't have to give a presentation. We just have to submit our assignment.
नहीं, आपके लिए presentation का question separate है. उनको मैंने एक assignment दी हुई थी presentation की form में. They missed that assignment. 3-4 लोग हैं जिन्होंने वो assignment miss कर दी. I can show you. For example, it is saying assignment 1, assignment 2. वहाँ पे assignment was a presentation. आपको presentation देनी है. It says, देखें आपका midterm submission है on the evening of 24th. That is a Monday. तो आप Monday evening को before your class on Tuesday, you are submitting your midterm. And on Tuesday morning, you are submitting you are presenting your midterm.
Oh, okay.
ठीक है?
Okay.
So you are both writing your midterm and you are also presenting your midterm paper. तो यहाँ पे आपको दोनों चीजें करनी है. You will first write your essay, and after writing the essay, you will present it the very next day.
Okay.
But it does say that you can present your midterm or your assignment. So you can present whatever you want to present. Make sure for the presentation of this class, you include a short video clip in your presentation, right? Because I have always asked you to discuss scenes and dialogues in the assignments. And I said it's very important to link situations with other situations that you are aware of. When we were discussing Atomic Cafe, we also mentioned a few other things. For example, we said the atomic blast was right after World War II. So we were actually looking at who was fighting World War II. First World and Second World were fighting the World War. And I also said in one of my lectures that America got hold of all the footage from World War II because when Allies won the war, Allies had cameras on their ships, for example, and Axis powers had cameras on their helicopters and choppers and motor planes, etc., that were used for attacking the ships, right? So both the enemy and both the parties were shooting. They were shooting real war footage. Japanese were shooting from air and Americans were shooting from below because they were on their ships in the sea. And when America got hold of footage from both sides, it edited a series in which enemies were attacking American ships. And I told you that they developed 26 episodes from 26 different attacks that apparently they had survived. So if you watch Victory at Sea series on YouTube, you would see that every episode is showing a real war situation. So it would be the same, you know, if Americans were shooting. Americans used drones in Afghanistan, right? We are very familiar with the word drone. And it means that Americans were shooting, filming even the war in Afghanistan. They were definitely filming war in Gulf. They were definitely filming war in Iraq. They were also filming war in Afghanistan. So if Afghans were also filming, which I really doubt because they do not have enough resources to film from below, right? So it means that That footage can also be used for editing a TV production, not just a documentary, because Victory at Sea is not. It's a series of episodes in which you see that enemy is attacking American ships, and America finally wins. Okay, and I said that they won the war, so they got hold of all of footage. So basically, when you write your essays, try writing, try comparing situations, try looking at things from your position. Yes, I added these questions after. First, I developed a question paper without these 3 questions for the mid. Then I decided that I add more questions. So I kind of covered the whole course. So I added Atomic Cafe. If you want to write if you want to attempt this question, I would say that think about Pakistan as well, because Pakistan is an atomic power. So you will be writing a paper on this attack or this film, Atomic Cafe, which basically covers the attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But you will definitely talk about Pakistan because it says discuss the film from your position, which means that you will be writing this paper in 2020, August 2020 or September 2020. Just write it from your position because you are living these moments in 2020. So you know which countries have the atomic technology and what has been happening. So you will actually discuss scenes from Atomic Cafe, and you will link it with, for example, Pakistani development of the technology or the Indian development of the technology or any other thing. So you will talk about human misery, but you will also talk about reality. So human misery is shown in this film, which is real, definitely real. But this film is hilarious, and war is normally not hilarious. Okay, so you will keep discussing the atomic attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but you will also add something on Pakistan's competence for the nuclear war, or problems related with it, or issues related with it. The next one says triumph of the will. I think when we were discussing, one of you mentioned some threats in North Korea, right? One of you created. जी, किसने किया था? लाइबा ने किया था?
मैंने किया था.
Okay. So Dania just did it. So Dania, I believe you understand what I'm saying, that as you had linked Korean situation with the German situation, so it just asks you to look at the film from today's perspective. So you will discuss what Hitler is doing, and you will keep linking it with the present geopolitical situations and threats that are there. Next question says that just pick any Bollywood, Hollywood, or Pakistani film, but it gives you a date. It says 2019 film. It's a challenge because you will find a lot of research papers on past films. It's not essential that you will find an academically written research paper on a 2019 film. So, but you can definitely compare with something that has been said in past papers, or with something which is also there in grey literature, but it does say discuss theoretically and academically. So even if you are picking up quotes from grey literature or past academic papers, you are discussing it from your position and you are discussing it theoretically. So do use write academically and use quotations, use paraphrases for discussing scenes and dialogues of any. Just pick one, not 3. It's giving you freedom to pick a Pakistani or an Indian or a Hollywood film. Pick any film. So it's giving you the option to pick up an English film if you don't want to opt for an Urdu or a Bollywood film. Okay, so it says just pick one film and find an issue within the film. For example, students do talk a lot about this film Thappad. Okay, so Thappad actually shows how women are changing. It shows that women are getting voice. So if somebody slaps a woman, she all of a sudden starts thinking about her rights. So you can pick this film Thappad, or you can pick Sarmad Khusar's films Zindagi Tamasha, and you can identify a couple of 2-3 different scenes from the film. You can make notes of dialogues from the film, and then you can discuss what is happening. So I would ask you to develop a thesis statement or research question, and about Thappad or about Zindagi Tamasha, and then write on that one. So it says just theoretically discuss a 2019 or even you can pick up a 2020 film. I would suggest that please do not pick up any old films. Pick up a 2019 or a 2020 film. Then it says we discussed this paper by Julian Levesque and Camille Bouy. He was writing on Sindhi films. So I have added links of titles of the two papers here. It says that you can further develop theory or argument on these films, right? Because Julian Levesque and Camille Bouy were discussing how Sindhi cinema started developing against the backdrop of government policies. For example, one unit program. And the other paper discusses beyond Muhammad Ali Bogra's era. It does say what happened after Muhammad Ali Bogra during Ayyub era. It does say what happened during Yaya's era to Sindhi films, and how Sindhi films progressed tremendously when we had Prime Minister or President from Sindh. Okay, so it is just asking you to develop this dialogue or this research on Sindhi cinema further. I haven't added Balochi or Pashto cinema here, but if you think that you would be interested in writing something on Pashto film, development of Pashto film, or status of Balochi film. I told you only 2 Balochi films have been produced to date. And first one is by Anwar Iqbal. He got a censor certificate from government back in 1976, but he never released his film in cinema. So I have been talking to Anwar Iqbal in the past few years. I often asked him to please release his film because it's his right to be known as first Balochi film producer of Pakistan, and he has not done it too far. So he has not done it so far. I asked him why he did not release his film. He said he did not release it because Pathans had burnt a cinema in Karachi after watching a film in which they did not like a scene. And in that particular film, a husband who had married the second time was beaten up by both of his wives. And Pathan said that it does not represent our cultures. Our women do not beat us. So Pathans were so angry after watching that scene in the film that they burnt the cinema in Karachi. That was not about about a Balochi film. Yet, Anwar Iqbal did not release his film in cinemas because he thought Balochis may get annoyed that the film is not representing Balochi culture with authenticity. So I don't know if his fear was right or wrong, but I did feel that he should have exhibited this film because he had censor certificate for the film. So though this question is only asking about Sindhi film against the backdrop of history, film and government relationship, you can actually propose to me if you are interested in writing something on Pashto or Balochi film. So I haven't included a question here on Pashto or Balochi film, but if you are interested, you can suggest to me, and yes, I think I will be interested in seeing something on Sindhi or Balochi film. Question number 5, it says, most of the times we are writing about protagonists. We are talking about who is the hero or the heroine in the film. We hardly discuss supporting characters. We rarely discuss aged people in the film. So question 5 is talking about issues of aged people. So it says gender, aging, and sexuality. So aging people may have different problems. I said we mostly focus on hero and heroine. We hardly think about supporting characters, and we hardly think about aged men or women in the film. So it is saying that pick up any of these genders, pick up aged men, or you can say that, oh, I will be writing a paper on aged women in film. It also gives you the option to write a paper on aged images, images of aged LGBTQ people. So it just says that it would be interesting to see how people of different old age people are represented in cinema. And you can talk about their gender, aging, and sexuality issues or relationship problems. So this is actually connecting cinema representation, or drama can also be picked up if you like, though it also, yes, it says both film or drama. So you can look for images of old man or old women or old LGBTQ people in any of Pakistani film or drama. So question 5 is basically about relationship between aging, gender, and sexuality issues. Okay, any question about anything that I have said so far?
No, Miss.
Okay. So question 6 says children's emotions. We did an assignment on this one, and we did discuss a lot of emotions. So you can pick up any film or any other thing that focuses on a child. There are some films that focus on children, or there can be TV shows that have children as characters. For example, I think I'm not sure if I mentioned this production to you. It was, let me see, Nikki. What was the title of the production? It was a Disney production. Hello, Nikki, or Goodbye, Nikki. Something like that. So it's just saying that pick up a production. Well, this is not Here it is. Best of luck, Nikki. Right? So you can actually pick up any of these here, or any other children serial or a film, right? So I was trying to open this number 4 because I think we did discuss it in. Okay, so this question only asks about, to discuss emotions of children in any of TV shows or in any of films. So you can pick up a film and then you can identify some scenes from the film or from, for example, this series, and then you can discuss, like you can use these scenes and dialogues for a discussion on children's emotions, right? So this question is focusing on children's emotions and their impact on their development in a particular TV series or film. So I'm just saying, just pick one, any TV series or any episode of that series or film, and you can attempt this question as well. Question 7 says, use the screenplay and dialogues of a particular film to discuss the false alarm theory. So if you want to discuss a funny film, do discuss, how a particular frame creates this impression of threat, and a false alarm rings in the viewer's mind, and the next frame cancels that alarm. So that means that you will pick up images from a particular series and situations from a particular film series, and discuss how it makes you laugh or how it makes a viewer laugh. Question 8 says, discuss visual pleasure and gaze. In a 2019 or 2020 film, what we were discussing in these papers, Laura Mulvey's Visual Pleasure in Narrative Cinema, was actually about Hollywood films. What we discussed in Sadaf Ahmed's Sexualized Objects and Embodiment of Honor and Rape, that was about 36 Pakistani films produced from 1947 to 2011, right? So Sadaf Ahmed had selected a different sample. And what we discussed in Visual Pleasure also covered films from 2 different eras. It focused on films from pre-1979 and post-1979 era. So the cutoff date was 1979, and the author picked up 1 or 2 films from the earlier period and 1 or 2 films from the latter period. So I'm just saying that you can pick up films that were produced in 2019 or 2020. You can look at more than one film, and you can try to see how that films uses woman or woman's body to create visual pleasure, right? So it's just asking you to use a different film for discussing visual pleasure in cinema. And when I mention these 3 articles here, I do expect that you would use some kind of quotes or paraphrases from these 3 papers for your discussion, and you can certainly find other material as well for the discussion. I think I already explained question 11 and question 12. I showed you the 2 articles, What Shapes Myself. I also showed you boys and girls and their media experiences. And I showed you a sample that is already there in Google Classroom. So you can actually use If you want to use a different theory for writing a script, you can suggest to me. It says write a drama script which should include screenplay and dialogues in the light of one of the theories discussed in classroom, right? So, though I have suggested only 2 theories in question 9 and 10, if you want to pick up a different theory from Google Classroom for writing the script, do tell me which theory you are picking up, and make sure that you are changing, you are developing dialogues and situations from what you read in that particular article, right? As I mentioned, that Sharjeel Tahir had developed script from this article here. He used conspiracy theory for developing a drama script. So it does imply that he used certain paragraphs of this paper for developing his dialogues, right? Okay. So I'm not asking you to use conspiracy theory, because I would prefer you use only the theories that we discussed, right? I haven't included conspiracy theory in the course outline in summer. It's there in the list, but I don't think we will discuss this one. We have already discussed Atomic Cafe and Triumph in the last 2 classes. Right, so any other question about midterm, final exam and the presentation? I said mid and final are similar. You can start writing a paper now, and you can develop the same paper into your final paper. When you submit your mid, I will give you feedback. So feedback will help you in improving your paper. So your final paper is a bit longer. You can, some people do write longer papers even earlier. So if you think that your midterm paper is longer than 1,000 or 1,500 words, it's, for example, 2,000 words long, even that would be fine. Okay. So that means that for the final, you will only be improving the quality of content in your paper, and you won't essentially need to write a 3,000 word paper for the final from scratch, right? If your paper is longer than 3,000 words, I don't have a problem, but I do think that you should try writing at least papers of the length that I have suggested. Use double space. Please do not submit papers using single space. Okay. So any other question about the exam or presentation?
No, miss. Not for me.
Okay. All right. So if you think that any of these questions, if you think that any of these questions actually is similar to any of the assignment, I gave an assignment on emotions. If you think you want to continue developing the same into your mid and final, you can also do that. Okay. So, which means that if a question here was actually asked in an assignment earlier, you can continue developing that into your midterm or final. Okay. And I think with this, I will end today's session. Please work on the exam over the weekend, because you may have less time during next week. And as I said, that I will mark mid on final. on the same paper if you like, and if you like, you can attempt different questions for mid and final. All right?
Okay, Miss. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too. Allah Hafiz.